Okay, so today we're going to be talking about translations, which is a type of transformation that occurs to different shapes. When you take a shape, you translate it or do some kind of transformation to it, which will move the shape, change its orientation, even sometimes change the size. But the transformation we're going to focus on today is called a translation. So again, first, before we start talking about translations, I first want to go over what it means to transform a shape or make some kind of transformation to a shape. So the transformation, it's just some kind of geometric operation that's going to transform an image or change an image. So it's, like I said, there's several different transformations that you can do to a shape or to a set of points that will transform it. The translation is probably one of the more simpler transformations. It doesn't change the size, it doesn't change the orientation or the way that it faces, the direction that it faces. Everything basically stays the same. It's just moving itself from one point to another. So that's what we're going to talk about then. So a translation, you're essentially doing what we call a slide. You're going to slide a figure or slide a point or a set of points from one position to another. So again, it doesn't change the way that it looks. So if I take my pen and I want to translate it, I want to slide it, I have to keep it looking exactly as it is. It has to be facing this horizontal direction. I might move it up, maybe I'll move it a little bit to the right, but it's still facing a flat horizontal position. You know, the tip of the pen or that little curve of the pen is still staying on top. If I were to take my pen and then move it here, I've flipped the position of this little curve. That's no longer a translation. I've done a different type of transformation. Same thing if I were to take the pen and then turn it like here. Notice I just said turn. Again, that's a different type of transformation. We're talking about translations where the way, the direction that the pen is going to face is going to stay the same the entire time. It's just moving its position. We're sliding it around, but not changing the direction of the pen. Okay. One thing that you also need to keep in mind when we talk about these shapes, we're talking usually about original images. The original image is going to be congruent to your translated image when we talk about a transformation. So again, it's very important to understand that a translation, it's the only transformation that maintains the size and the orientation of your figure. So your original image is congruent. And again, congruent means that it's equal. Okay, so it's equal to the translated image. And like I said before, the transformation, this is the only transformation that's going to maintain the size and the direction or the orientation. Now there's other transformations that will maintain size, but again, translation maintains both size and orientation, which is direction. The other transformations will have an effect on the orientation, and then there's another transformation that has an effect on the size. So if I were to picture a figure, let's start with just a triangle. If I'm going to translate the triangle, I'm just going to slide the triangle in a direction, but nothing else is going to change about it. If this was triangle A, B, and C, then my points are going to stay in the exact same position. It's going to now become a translated figure, A prime. So prime means the translated figure. And we put a little apostrophe there. That lets us know that the original was the ABC. The translated picture is now going to be the primed picture. So A prime, B prime, and C prime. That's that apostrophe there. You need to make sure that you put those. This is very important when you are talking about your newest points. You have to identify and label it as A prime, B prime, C prime. And if I were to go ahead and translate it again, then that would change it now to A double prime and B double prime and C double prime. That's, again, it's very important that you make that notation of prime symbols, prime and double prime, to indicate that you've translated it or done some form of a transformation, and so it's no longer the original figure. So one thing, it's very, very easy to remember with translations, you're just moving. You're moving left or right. You're moving up or down. If you're moving both left and down, then it looks like it's kind of going at a diagonal. If you're moving, left and up, you're moving at a diagonal. So it's just a movement of your points, left and right, up and down. So when you're translating, the movement that's going to happen is going to affect your coordinates. So we typically talk about graphing these on a coordinate plane. So you have an X and a Y coordinate. So you're going to be moving left or right. So if you're moving left or right on a coordinate plane, that's going to change the X coordinate. Okay, moving left, when you move left, that means you're going to be subtracting from X. And if you move right, you're going to add to your X. Okay, so subtraction is going to have you move left, and addition to the X is going to have you move right. Now, obviously, like I said before, you can move up and down as well. So if you move down or if you move up, that's going to have an effect on your Y. So this will change your Y. Okay, so moving down, that's also going to be subtraction. So you would subtract from Y. And if you move up, that's going to be addition. So you would add to the Y. And in case you've forgotten the order, points are always written as X, Y. That's the order that we write our points. So again, X tells us, which direction we're going, left and right. Y tells us what direction we're going, up and down. Okay, let's go on to the next page. And you can pause the video at any time that if you need to be able to keep up and copy, or you can go backwards through the video. It's perfectly fine. So let me give you an example. It's page 56. So let's say that I have an original point. So I've got the points A, which is at negative 3, 4. And I've got the point B, which is at 1, 3. And point C, which is at negative 4, 1. And I want to go ahead and I'm going to translate this. I'm going to translate it 2 to the right and 5 down. I want to translate 2 to the right and 5 down. So that means I'm now going to have new points. I'm doing a translation to the right and down. So that means my prime imaged, my A prime is going to be in a new location. B prime will be in a new location. And C prime will be in a new location. So again, your X is being affected by what moves left and right. So knowing that I'm moving 2 to the right, that means I'm going to take every single one of my X coordinates. So again, my X coordinates, negative 3 is an X coordinate, positive 1 here is an X coordinate, negative 4 is an X coordinate. I'm taking each one of these X coordinates and I'm going to move to the right 2. So that means I'm going to add 2 to each of these coordinates. So if I do a negative 3 plus 2, that's going to give me negative 1. If I do 2 plus 2, that's going to give me 3. And if I do negative 4 plus 2, that's going to give me negative 2. All right, then we've got our position for Y. Each of these positions, the positive 4, the 3, the positive 1, these are each of my Y coordinates. And my Y coordinate, again, moves up and down. In this case, I'm moving 5 positions down. That means I'm going to go ahead and subtract 5 from everything. So I'm going to do 4 minus 5. And 4 minus 5 is going to give me negative 1. Then I'm going to do 3 minus 5, and that's going to give me negative 2. Then I'm going to do 1 minus 5, and that's going to give me negative 4. And then I'm done. These are my new points. After translating 2 to the right and 5 down, I now have A prime at negative 1, negative 1. B prime is at 3, negative 2. C prime is at negative 2, negative 4. It's that simple. Real quick, real easy. Okay, let's try another one. So let's say that we've got, I'm going to go ahead and translate three units down and 1 unit left. 3 units down, 1 unit left, and my original points are going to be at negative 1, 2 for X. Y is going to be at 6, negative 3. Z is going to be at 2, negative 5. So again, I'm wanting to go ahead and translate this 3 units down. So 3 units down, again, that keyword down means it's going to affect the Y. It means I'm going to take whatever my Y value is and I'm going to subtract 3. I'm going to take whatever my Y value is and I'm going to subtract 3. So here's my Y. My Y is the second part of the coordinate plane. So I'm going to subtract 3 from each of these. Okay, then for my x moves left and right. Here I'm moving left. Left means I'm subtracting, so I'm going to do x minus 1. I'm moving left, so I'm taking my x coordinate and subtracting 1. So I'm going to subtract 1 from every one of my x coordinates. Okay, and then that'll give me my x prime, which is going to be at -2, -1. Then I have y prime, which is going to be at a +5, -6. Then I've got z prime, and that's going to be at a +1 and a -8. That's my final answer. All right. Now, it's not always going to be written this way. They're not always going to say, oh, you're going to translate 3 units down and 1 unit left, or you know, you're going to translate 2 units right and 5 units down. Sometimes the way that they might phrase it is they might say, oh, you're going to take point F and you're going to do x minus 7 and y plus 5. Okay, or that they're giving you that point F is going to be x minus 7 and y plus 5. And then your translation, you're going to translate it 6 up, 3 right. So what would the new coordinate be? Well, we don't have just numbers for our coordinate. We have a variable involved, but it's still the same process. That if you're taking, you know, F is x minus 7 and y plus 5, and I know I want to go 6 units up and 3 units right. Remember, up is going to affect the y. So over here where it says y plus 5, I'm now going to add 6. Well, I can't add 6 to y, but I can add 6 to 5. I can add 6 to that 5 right there, and that would become y plus 11. And then the same thing for 3 units to the right. That's going to affect my x. And I'm going to the right, which means I'm going to add, well, I'm not going to add it to my x, but I can add it to that -7. A -7 plus 2, that's going to give me a -5. So now I have x minus 5. And that would be the new f prime. Oh, I just added 2. I'm so sorry. I added 2 and it's supposed to be add 3. So it should be an x minus 4. Okay. Let's go ahead and do, maybe we'll do two more practice problems, and then I can let you guys go on to your own. I'm going to go ahead, and I don't have enough room on the bottom for here, so I'm going to go skip to the next page. Okay, so if I have point A is at -6 and +2, and I say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and translate it, and A prime is going to be at 12, -4, I want to know what was the translation. So what is the translation? So essentially what they're telling you is you're starting at A and then ending at A prime. You are starting at A and then you end at A prime. So it's just an equation that you're going to create. It's just an equation that you're going to wind up creating here. So for x, let's start with our x position. Okay, we started at -6. And then we added some kind of value to it or subtracted some value to it to get to a 12. Right? We started at -6 and we ended at +12. So we've got to figure out what is it that we got to get here. So if I say I've got an equation here, what's the inverse operation of a -6? Well, that's just a +6. So I would add 6 to both sides, and then I would find out that my x is 18, which means I translated, because 18 is a positive, I translated 18 to the right. So let me explain that again. I started at -6. I did some kind of translation, and we don't know whether it was a positive or negative yet, so we always just put a positive. And it's going to equal my primed value. And then you just solve that equation. The inverse operation of a -6 is a +6. So if I add 6 to both sides, I get 18. So -6 plus 18 gets me to that 12. So it means that to get from -6 to 12, I went 18 units to the right because 18 was positive. Let's go ahead and take a look at the y now. With the y, you're going to set it up the exact same way. We started at 2, then we did some kind of translation of y, and we ended at a -4. Well, in order to get the y by itself, I'd have to subtract 2 from both sides. And that's going to give me y is equal to -6. So that means my translation for y wound up going in the negative direction. That's downward. So I went down 6 units. Because of the fact that it was negative, it means I translated down. And that's easy to check. If you take -6 and add 18, you'll get 12. If you take 2 and subtract 6, you'll get -4. So there's our translation. We went 18 right and 6 down. And then we're done. Now again, before I told you guys that sometimes you might have more than one transformation that's occurring. So let's say that we have point A, and point A is at 2, -1, and I'm going to translate 2 up, 4 left, and then I'm going to translate again. I'm going to translate 1 right and 9 up. Okay, so the important thing to keep in mind here, that this first part right here, this is going to be your prime. This second part, that's going to be your double prime. Because you're having 2 different transformations occurring, that means that you've got a double prime that happens. Okay, so let's focus first on the prime. So our point started at 2, -1. Now it says we're going to translate 2 up. 2 up is going to affect the y. This is going to affect the y. So that means we're going to do y plus 2. So I'm going to add 2 to the negative 1, and that's going to give me a positive 1. Again, this is going to bring me to A prime. Okay, then we're going to go 4 units to the left. Left affects my x, and it means I'm subtracting from my x. So I'm going to do x minus 4. X minus 4. So I'm doing 2 minus 4. That's going to bring me at a negative 2. So A prime puts me at negative 2, positive 1. Well, then from there, we're then going to go on to our double prime, A double prime. Because then I want to go ahead and translate 1 unit right and 9 up. So 1 unit right, moving to the right, is going to affect my x. I'm going to add 1 to the x. So I'm going to add 1. That's going to put me at a negative 1. And then the 9 up, that affects my y. I'm going to take y and add 9. So add 9 to the 1 that I have here, and it puts me at a 10. So A double prime is where I'm ending, and that's my final answer. A double prime is at negative 1, positive 10. Okay, so you guys are going to have an assignment. You have the remainder of class period to get started on it. Make sure that you're working quietly and independently.